Let's see what happens.
Now streaming live on YouTube. We're so good at this.
It's awesome because as Brian clicks things, his face gets dark.
Yeah.
All right.
We know what we're talking about.
All right. Well, here we are for another exciting episode of Arts, Parts, and Points.
It's awesome because Brian clicks things, his face.
All right, so there is a delay. We'll have to prepare for that. But yeah, so anyway, we're back. Our summer break's over, but we didn't take a break, so there's that. We just kept plugging away on various things. So we're gonna get all caught up. So let's start with Ryan, and why don't you tell us about your summer break and relaxation and all that vacationing you did?
Yeah, I did actually take a vacation for the first time in a while. That was pretty nice. Went up to York, Maine, and did a bunch of nothing. It's pretty nice. Discovered limoncello and Fresca. Highly recommend that to everybody. It's a good summer drink. Masonry, I didn't take a break at all. I did a bunch of stuff. I'm in my new role as District Deputy Grand Education Officer, so our visitation season started and traveled to a couple LOIs, one in Mass, actually, in Framingham, which Michael joined us surprisingly with. That was pretty awesome to see him. Yeah, it's been good. Been doing some Masonic reading and been following what Chuck Dunning has been kind of preaching in his book about trying to turn it into a little bit more contemplative. So I have a little journal that I keep, so I write down some ideas and some thoughts, and been going good. Nothing official, but keeping very busy.
You painted about 27 pictures over the summer.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, that was good. I had a commission for a brother in Scotland that I finished for St. Andrew. That's at the photographers right now, and did the Duly Prepared, which got a ton of interest. So that was pretty cool. We sold a bunch of prints of that, which was cool. Still gonna find a home for the original at some point, but pretty good. Yeah, can't complain.
It's awesome.
How about you?
Well, me, Jesus, sure has been a bit since we've been on here.
Yeah.
Let's see. What did we do? We in June.
The Army.
in June, we went to Esotericon.
Yeah.
Where the Joe Martinez and RJ and the guys. And that was cool. You know, that was some very deep conversations. Obviously, I got to spend some great time with my good friend Piers, who is one of the greatest people to hang out with outside of Lodge. But yeah, we had quite the contingency from the Lodge head down there. We had some fun. You know, we had a nice tour of DC and headed out and about and ran into some folks we know. But it was very interesting because so we've done our Masonicon for a few years, but to walk, 400 or 500 miles away into a lodge room and know 50 or 60 people, it's just crazy, So maybe there's a need for this education thing. I don't know, but yeah. Then in July we went out to California for South Pasadena Masonicon. That was exciting. Mike spoke and I spoke and we watched a bunch of premieres. They're very Hollywoody. So, yeah, a bunch of, other random stuff that's popped up and been done. And, now we're getting ready to get busy.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike?
Unfortunately, I don't have much to add because we were together all the time. So we pretty much did the same exact thing. So I can save everybody a couple minutes and say that what Brian said.
It appears you went far far away.
Yeah.
That's my joke for the night.
It's been yeah, rocking and rolling lately. Just a lot of stuff coming up and moving on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be traveling like crazy soon, which is going to be fun. Going up to Canada this weekend, and then Grand Lodge, Oregon, in like 4 weeks. It's going to be new. I've never been out to the West Coast before, so.
Well, that'd be cool.
I don't know. I hear Twilight was shot up there, so I'm pretty excited.
I would take you as more of a werewolf than a vampire, but
I was gonna say like Team, I forget his name, but I don't know it, which is probably
I don't remember.
it's probably the best answer possible.
Yeah, that's the safest.
Well,
Yeah, so here we are. We're getting into the year. We're what? It's 2 weeks in because we had Labor Day and that wasn't going to work out for anybody. So
No.
we had to postpone a couple weeks, and we're still going to be on that first Monday-ish, and hope for the best. But yeah, within 2 weeks, we had our quarterly at Grand Lodge in Massachusetts, and we have two good friends running for senior and junior warden for the Grand Lodge. So our state's obviously different from the world because that's how we are. And each year, a committee is formed, and they choose two people to run for each position in what they call a non-campaign, because obviously we don't do anything negative or try to say we're better than anyone else. So we have Heath Verberg, who we all know is going to be running for senior Grand Warden, and then Chris St. Cyr, who went to California with us, is running for junior Grand Warden. So that's I'm pretty excited about that.
so as Massachusetts Masons, are you allowed to endorse either one of these, or as a New Hampshire Mason, I can't be touched. So if I were to say those two would have my vote if I were there, that'd probably be.
Well, there, you do get endorsements, but they don't, because obviously just the wardens and master can vote for each lodge,
Right,
separate quarterly. So our lodge knows who it's voting for, and we'll be taking a vote at our next meeting to send our wardens and master up there with strict charge. And
so do the wardens have to vote for the by the will of the lodge, or is it up to their prerogative?
they should vote for the will of the lodge, but a lot of times the discussion doesn't happen. So what do? You just do what you think is best.
Yeah. See, in New Hampshire, when we have Grand Lodge, the master and wardens vote for themselves, and then we have a fourth vote, which is the Grand Lodge representative who has to vote for the good of the lodge. Like, so if we know votes are coming up, he has a say in it, with the exception, I believe, of like what you're doing where you're nominating someone for a chair or something like that. Obviously, those are on the fly a little bit. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so exciting first 2 weeks with that. Really, now I'll be traveling around with Heath a bunch and running into Chris, I'm sure. And, I like traveling anyway, so it's not really a hard thing to convince me. Hey, you're going to travel around with me for a bit. Sure. I'll go visit some lodges.
Yeah.
Twist my arm.
Yeah.
There's dinner, right?
Yeah. Right. Oh.
I'm in.
Yeah.
So that should be fun. But we'll see how it goes. He's got 3 months to get out there, both of them, and talk to some brothers, and it's good. They get to meet a whole bunch of people and whatnot. So yeah, so that's moving along pretty good. We got our meeting coming up, so we have a speaker who does H.P. Lovecraft. He does a graphic novel called Lovecraft P.I., and it's really impressive.
That's cool.
And him being local, and since our district deputy decided to not do his official visit in September, like it's been done for the past decade, we had to move our Halloween month, which would be the Lovecraft horror stories, to September. But yeah, so I'm excited about that. You know, doesn't take much to get me excited, I guess.
Yeah. Dinner.
Well, a good dinner.
Dinner.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we were going to talk about events and what we've seen, what we've done, what we've participated in. I think this is actually going to be kind of a good thing to talk about because you have such a strong background in planning and getting things going. I've been involved in a ton of them, but not from a planning point of view. I mean, my lodge has done an evening of Masonic Light every year, but I've been in a ton of different symposiums and other stuff. So I've seen it from the other side. So, and I know Michael has been huge in helping getting stuff done in his lodge, from lodge events to helping with Masonicon and stuff like that. So,
So I think Mike's going to add. He was the junior grand warden a couple of years ago. So I mean, he's been to tons of events across
right.
of all different quality levels. So it'll
Oh
be.
yeah, I'm not saying he didn't do it. I'm just saying there's three very distinct viewpoints that we have. I'm not saying Mike's here.
Yeah. So how do you want to start this off? What do you consider like?
Well, I'll start off with a question to you, because you're pretty much responsible for one of the most successful Masonic events in the country right now. When you come up with an idea like that, or any idea for an event, what did you find the most successful way of getting things moving? Like, there's always that stage where someone goes, yeah, I have a great idea. And it's a great idea when it comes to you. But that step from idea to like active planning and organization, I find is where, at least in my lodge and some other places, that's where the pitfall is. There's a lot of people who go, that's a great idea, you do it. So how did you guys actually overcome that and take it to a level where you had a ton of participation and help getting things done?
For me, I like high fail, low success rates. You take like an idea like that, and just like you're saying, as an idea, it sounds great, but there's a high chance it's going to fail. And that motivates me, I guess. But for getting other people motivated, it just, if you actually take the idea, any idea, and if you can envision it being fun for everybody, or that you can see the light at the end of the tunnel almost, and then that's kind of how I see it. Once I can see that light and everything makes sense to me, and in my head I can calculate out all the feasibility, and this is how much in my head it's going to cost, and this is my perceived reward at the end, so to speak, on whether it's attendance or whatever. And once all that clicks, I just go.
Yeah.
Just and once you start going, people see you going, and then everyone flocks together, and you put your name out there. Nobody wants to fail. So
yeah, that's good. What about you, Michael? I mean, you've done things on a Grand Lodge level. I'm assuming that when you have Grand Lodge backing it, well, I've seen it. Once you get that pat on the back, things seems to get more motivated, I guess, or people get more motivated. How do you start from scratch and get things into at least the tires moving on the pavement?
I think whether it's Grand Lodge or a lodge level, it's the same. It's really the same thing. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. Like Brian kind of alluded to, what a lot of the events I've been involved at the Grand Lodge level have been run by Alfredo Canute, and the guy is, other than Brian, is probably one of the most effective people I know at putting an event together. But there's no, you're always looking for that magic that somebody has, that it's like, if I knew what that guy knew, I could just do it. usually when you pull a curtain back, it's not really that. It's a lot of hard work. I mean, there's a lot of hours that go into it, and you know, I think it's a misnomer sometimes where when I hear somebody say, I want to have a district event or I want to have a Grand Lodge event, usually that's a sign of laziness for me, because it means that somebody wants just a Grand Lodge to back it so it can just get accepted and not have to do the hard work. And usually those kind of events usually fail from what I've seen. Like I said, there's really no substitute for just getting out there and doing what you need to do. Brian, I'll tell you, I told him a few times that years before Masonicon, I had a very similar idea, and it was an absolute failure. You know, whether that was on my own part for not organizing it correctly, whether it just wasn't the time, I don't know. But I'd say there's more of us in this chat right now than there probably were at that event. You know, it didn't work at all. So, like Brian said, though, you can't be afraid to fail. I mean, that's you just got to get in there and try it again. We've had other successful events like at Brigham Lodge where like we've had a spaghetti supper that's raised probably $30,000 in the last. It was like $5,000 a year for. I think we're going on a 10th year, average of 3 to 5. So we raised over 30 grand for this school, just slinging spaghetti. If I had done an educational event at Brigham, it might not have worked. They like getting in the kitchen. Some guys would argue over who's going to wash the dishes. Like that's what they're really into. I could probably get away with running that event with 15 people, and I'd have 25 people that would want to be part of it. So I think finding the right event for your lodge is key to it. If you got a bunch of guys that really aren't in education, then unless you got a few really hard drivers, it's not gonna succeed because nobody's gonna go and back it.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting you say that because with my lodge, we have an evening of Masonic Light, and education really wasn't at the forefront of our lodge until a few of us kind of got together and said we want to bring this to lodge. There was a couple of us that realized that it was lacking in my home lodge, and we said, all right, how can we do this? So the first year we brought in Hodap, and he knocked it out of the park. We had a ton of people there because he's Hodap. Everybody wants to hear what he has to say. But then afterwards, it kind of fell to the two guys in the lodge who are really into education. Well, they'll take care of this, and it was successful failures every year where we would be pulling hairs out of our head until, wondering how the hell we were going to pull this together, if it was going to work, if we were going to have people there to wash the dishes, that sort of thing. And then at the end, it would just all fall into place in the last, week. And then would Saya Bridge of Relief say, should we do this again? And then we do it again. But that's a good point because, I'm a huge into education, obviously, and I think that educational events are extremely important, especially if you're in a jurisdiction where there's not a lot of them. But at the same time, you don't want to do an event that's going to isolate from your lodge or you don't want your lodge to feel like they're obligated to be there, even though they don't. Because when especially if you're organizing an event, if you see an event that you've put a lot of time and effort and sometimes personal money into to make it work, and you just see people who are supposed to be helping just not want to be there, it's really it's detrimental to your Masonic health. Let's just put it that way. You kind of lose your enthusiasm. It's yeah. One thing I was hoping Brian would talk about Sonic events. So, like from personal experience, I'm a creative guy. I can come up with ideas, and usually they're good, not always. But if you come up with an idea that needs to work, I might not be the best person to run it, and I'm really good at being creative and coming up with something that's new and exciting, but I'm horrible at organizing the event itself. It's just not my forte. You had mentioned in your installation speech about, like all these different roles of Masons in a good lodge. I was hoping you would expand upon it because I don't remember who you were quoting when you were talking about it. And I think it applies to not just lodges, but events and anything you organize, really.
So there's a hidden gem in Freemasonry. It's the York Rite Leadership Emerging Leaders Program. York Rite's broken up into conferences. So we're in the Northeast Conference, obviously, and it's New England, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, I believe. So 3 years ago, I started doing this, and that was the year I got installed, like a week after. And it was, the first class was put on by Jim Palmer, who's a past Grand Master of, I think, Tennessee or Kentucky. He's the editor of the Knight Templar magazine. Tremendous speaker. It's essentially like sitting down with Colonel Sanders and getting taught leadership. It's just, but they dig into a bunch of different styles of leadership and programs, and they kind of combine them all together. And one section of it broke down personality types to shapes. So you have circles, which are your happy-go-lucky, drop in the room. They're going to make friends with everybody in the room. It's not hard. It's just really outgoing people, but aren't the best planners or, stuff like that. And then you have squares that tend to overthink things. They put so much energy into thinking it out rather than just doing it. They kind of get bogged down with that. And then the triangles, which they're going to get it done no matter what. And they tend to not concern themselves if they hurt people's feelings, and so to speak, to get to, to end the end game, there's casualties type of a style. And then there's the squiggles, which are just, they're the party guys, and everything else is chaotic in their lives. And, when you really start to put them all together, if you can have all four, you have an amazing lodge, because everyone has their strong points and their weak points. They all connect together. But if you have too many of one style, it doesn't work. But a lot of that leadership, training I've been able to take out and use on a day-to-day basis. We just finished my last year of it, the first Saturday of this month in Albany. And it was, trying to think of the title, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And I was like, really? That's what we're doing? It was, and then we go into it, it's like, oh my God. Definitely some stuff I've been able to take out and practice on people.
Brian told me about that, and I was like, what are they programming us for? Like, what is this about? This sounds really Orwellian.
Every time he rings a bell, I mention art.
Yeah.
And you don't even know it.
Yeah. So that episode from The Office where he trains Dwight.
Yeah. Same thing, right? You know, that's what it actually becomes. And as I use it more and more, it's taught me how to deal with the different personalities as much. So rather than just being that triangle that punches through everything, now I try to, scoop up the squiggles on the way and all that. And, it's been very beneficial on smoothness of events and my patience level with other people, stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's a big help.
That's awesome.
I think a good thing you can do too is sometimes, we have a thing at Brigham where we tend to take the younger officers and give them a small project to take care of. And we usually put them together with a past master that's good at that kind of thing. Like if we have a widows program, that goes to the senior deacon. And we'll put him together with a past master that's really good at that sort of thing. Because a lot of times those guys have never done anything like that. Like when I came into masonry, I probably couldn't have made dinner for 4 people, and then so you build a lot of those skill sets, and so to expect someone to be able to do it right off the bat is kind of tough. So I think again we have to train everybody to or start to help develop people so that more events like that can happen. I think that's what a lot of times people just don't have the abilities to be able to pull something like that off. Like, if Brian and some of those guys weren't there, I don't think MasoniCon happens, no matter how much they thought it was a good idea.
Yeah. Well, it brings up kind of, from an organizational point of view, I haven't organized a lot of events. I've kind of been a consultant a few times. But like when it gets down to the, digging the dishes and filling the holes, I've only had limited success in my lodge. But one of the struggles I have is generating that participation. Now, what I'm about to hear, and is like, well, you just got to make sure you got a good lodge that's ready to do that. But I know for a lot of people who are listening to this, that might not be the case. Like if you're going to start something that's so avant-garde that people aren't used to it, or it's taking people out of that comfort zone. What do you think a good way to get the motivation of those guys? Jumpstart that motivation. Do you have any tips or anything?
So I would say the most important thing is if you have a lodge, you're going to have to connect with what the lodge culture likes. I know we've talked in depth on different styles of lodges, but if the lodge isn't big into esoterics, then you can't start rolling out Greg Kaminsky's deep talks. It's just not going to fly. They're not going to get it. Yeah. It's not going to make them comfortable. So it has to be something comfortable. I think some of the more successful talks at our lodge have been like Nathan Tweedy talking about, Freemasons and the Baseball Hall of Fame and the stories he has that captivated a lot of people because they could instantly relate to it. They knew baseball, they grew up with it. So it was that style that you have to take into consideration. So you got to find out what the lodge is into and base what you want to do off that. Not to say that, you don't have people that are into deeper topics or whatever, but maybe that's at a club level, not a lodge level, rather than, because if you put on something, you're just going to disappoint yourself because you're going to put a ton of time into it and it's not going to work because it's not built to work. And I think that's probably the key thing I can say. It has to be what the lodge needs, not what you want.
And that's part of what's successful about MasoniCon, right? Because you intentionally put a diverse set of speakers in, from like the thing that a young honored apprentice that's just joined the lodge to someone that's like a collegiate level scholar like Greg Kaminsky would appreciate. Like you're gonna have something for everybody there. And lately we haven't seen as many people go up to watch the speakers even, right? Because it's become like more of the overall event itself, as it's not as much about the speakers anymore. And from what I've seen.
Oh.
Like it's the draw, but no, I mean it's good, but you see like a small percentage of the people actually going upstairs to watch the talks. Especially, it doesn't help because it's on YouTube, so they know they just go to our Facebook. They know they can go to find the speeches later. But I think that's why it's so successful, because there's something for everybody. If a guy just wants to go there and buy Masonic memorabilia, he can do that. If he wants to just go be around a bunch of Masons, he can do that. If he wants to go to a table lodge, he can do that. If he wants to go see speakers, he can do that. Like there's like something for every single person there. So I think that's why it was so successful.
Which is great, but I mean, to give advice to somebody that wants to start an event, I think that you could have just a successful event at a realistic scale. I mean, you can't expect a ton of people to come from out of state to go to your event, but you look at some of the events that have enticed me that I haven't gone to, like, the cave degree that has like 3 states get together and they do degrees in a cave. Like, that's amazing to me. Like, that would make me leave my state. I just haven't, but and it's stuff like that I think that, MasoniCon's great, and it's popular places, but there's so many other great events that it's almost not fair to just keep talking about it. It's like the average person's not going to be like, oh, I'm just going to bang out a MasoniCon or a large event like that. You got to start with something, and even if it's bringing in a speaker or just doing something out of the box. Because I mean, there's tons of ideas that none of us have even thought about trying yet, and they're going to slowly roll out. And all we can do is try to support these people when these crazy ideas come out.
Yeah.
Mike and I came across this random app today that popped up on my Facebook, like Cameo. I don't know if you've seen this, but you can actually pay famous people to read whatever you write to them and then give it to somebody. So you can have, I don't know, Kevin from The Office send a happy birthday to your mom, and once you pay the fee, it's done. Like, what a great idea. If I had thought of it, wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys. No offense, but
for $2,500, you can have Caitlyn Jenner give you a message.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty broad spectrum.
I'll give you the gift of her never having to talk to you.
But it's just, that out of the box, like nobody had ever thought about that, or at least put it into practice. So think about all the things that we don't even know about that's going to come up in our lifetime within the craft. Like, that's great.
I think one of the things that, I completely agree. I also think that one of the things that people immediately assume is if it's popular, therefore it's good. I've been to very small organizations that are wildly successful. And it wasn't meant for huge crowds. And a huge crowd probably would have deterred from the overall meaning and experience of it. I mean, we had the Apollo Festival for the Association of Masonic Arts, and we had maybe 15, 20 people there from all over the world, but the people who were there were the people who should have been there. And, if it was open to the public and if we had, 300 people there to come do it, I don't think I personally would have gotten as much out of it. It was that personal connection of meeting all these people who had like interests that made it so great. And I've been in media. I mean, a couple other events that I think of just off the bat is, like down in North Carolina, they have Wilkerson College, which is set up as basically a series of educational seminars. And basically you can go to this Masonic college and learn a bunch of stuff. It's really cool. And then they have an event where they bring in national speakers and talk. And, it's a medium-sized event, but again, not nearly what would come to MasoniCon, but all the people there are people who are really into that sort of education, and they get a whole lot out of it. So, again, we always push it, and I'll push it again and again, is, with traveling and really trying to see what's out there that piques your interest and then going to them. You can't wait for it to come to you, and you're going to learn about all these events by going to these things. One of the things that I learned from going to an event, I spoke at a Masonic education conference out in from the Grand Lodge of Colorado, and they had Masonic debates. They would get up and they would pick 2 people, give them like a 6-month head start on what the topic is going to be, and then flip a coin, and they had to argue one side of it. But they would pick speakers who would generally debate for the win, no matter what side it was on. And you learn a lot about it. The first one I saw out there, I've been out there twice, was, are there secrets in Freemasonry? And you think, yeah, it's a given. But when you see someone who actually knows what they're talking about valiantly argue against it, you might not agree with them, but if that person is doing his job and taking it seriously, it's an amazing learning experience. And that was something I brought back to my lodge. And I wasn't ready to ask someone to argue against something. It's not the right time in our lodge to do that. I don't want to. There's a couple of people I think would do a good job of it, but I don't think the lodge atmosphere is ready for that yet. But we kind of changed it around and had it at our dinners, and people were coming up to us saying that was my favorite part of the evening. That debate that we had. So, it's all about you're stealing ideas from people and just kind of tweaking them until you make your own. So.
Well, we did that at the Evening Masonic Light for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing. Split the table in half, and you're for and you're for against, and let it happen.
Yeah.
And I think and the valid points come out of it when you really think about it.
Yeah. No, you will learn a lot, and I'm a firm believer that if you can't argue against what you're believing, then you don't understand what you're talking about. Like, you should be able to fully understand both sides of an argument before you make your decision on it, and then I'll say, all right, you have a valid point. One of the problems I have with like social media and like the Masonic groups out there and stuff is, anything with social media right now is just instantaneous. If someone puts something out online, you're not allowed to think about it. You have to respond immediately. And if someone disagrees with you, it's up to you to disagree with them as quickly as possible instead of actually putting some thought into it. And that thought and that debate inside you is where you're really going to come out if you actually believe what you're talking about. And that's why I love the idea of when you do debates and not telling you which side of the argument you're going to argue. It's pretty cool because, two ones that I saw out there were, are there secrets in Freemasonry, and are the landmarks of Freemasonry identifiable? Like, both of these guys fought on each end, and like they both of them want, both sides each time wanted to win, and they were gonna win, and they really brought out some ideas. I've seen some short ones that were very intense. Should women be allowed in the fraternity? You'd think that is so one-sided, but the argument against it was, the argument for it was done very well. And so it's really cool because it really makes you think differently about these things that you think are, cut and dry, because nothing really is cut and dry.
Well, I think you can, as a human, it's easy to change your mind. I think people get set in their ways, and that's fine. But if you are open to understanding a different angle of it, you change your mind. I change my mind all the time on things. It's just, I'd be an idiot not to if I all of a sudden believed it. But no, I'm going to stay in this position because that's how I've always done it.
I'm taking this thing right now called I listen to the great courses. You can get them through Audible and stuff. And there's one called the Philosopher's Toolkit, and it's all about like ways of thinking. And one of the ones he starts off with, he goes like, we're going to start off with an exercise. I want you to yell out the answer as soon as you hear it. And it's like, all right, Timmy has, a baseball, wants to buy a baseball and a bat, and he has only $1.10. He goes, and the bat is exactly one more than the baseball. How much does the ball cost? So he goes, all right, did you yell $1? Did you yell 10 cents? Because 10 cents plus $1. And me being with my math skills, I'm like, yeah, of course, it's $1. Duh. And he goes, well, you're wrong. It's 5 cents because it doesn't make sense. But 80% of people in Harvard said like 10 cents. He goes like, so this proves 2 points. 1, your first assumption is most likely going to be wrong. And 2, that you can change your mind when the right evidence is presented to you. You have that ability. And I was like, yeah, it's like that little exercise, from a world famous psychoanalyst, but yeah, you came up with that specific thing, but it's really true. Like, you have to have, that's the whole point of this whole fraternity, is you have to be able to change your mind and do it for the better. What's the point of seeking light if you could just do it with a flip of a switch, you know?
I don't know if it's changing your mind as much as evolving with evidence, so to speak, right? You know, when you join the fraternity, it's all about a typical past master is always in the way. And then I became a past master, and I completely understand their point of view now. Yeah. So, you know, you just evolve as things go. You just got to be open to it, you know, and with the goal of supporting people rather than being negative. Because once negativity is brought into it, it becomes a cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Mike?
So I'm thinking about how some of the more successful events I've seen on a lodge level, short of the ones that we've talked about already. It seems like if you want to do something educational, sometimes history is the best place to start. So there's been some pretty cool events over the last few years that I'm thinking of as we're talking. Last year's Grant Warden, Fred Dobson and I both got to go to an event where a reenactor playing Lafayette did the walk through. He had walked through Massachusetts on his famous tour, you know, when he wrote the book, and that was a really well attended event, and it was, I think, probably one of the top things I was able to do. Way back for the MMRL, we did a cool event in Springfield that it only got 50, 60 people there, but we were able to go into the basement of the Springfield Armory, and the Roswell Lee was the third commandant of the armory, and he's a past master of Hampton Lodge, which is our charter. And so we got the head ranger, Richard Colson at the time, went downstairs and he showed us all these. He's like, okay, so all these guys were Masons, and he told us the stories of those Masons, and he showed us that on a lot of the muskets or the rifles that they were making, that their inspection marks were square and compasses or all seeing eyes, and they were tracking them. He was tracking them back to well, we think this is this guy, and that was his symbol, and that was how they would say okay, I inspected the breech on this, so this is good. And it was just cool to see that little thing in a history, and to be able to sit with. He brought in Thomas Blanchard, who made the repeating lathe, and that pretty much started interchangeable parts in the United States. And we were able to actually stand in front of the lathe that, you know, revolutionized the United States at the time and made us the world power that we were later. So this is a cool event, and there's only 50 people there, but we couldn't have fit much more if we wanted to anyway with the space constraints there. But it's just an idea of how something so simple, just contact the national park, and they provide us a speaker, and we got somebody make some sandwiches, and that's it. We watched his presentation, and we made some money. It was a fundraiser for the MMRL at the time. I saw another guy did the Life and Times of Benjamin Franklin. I don't know, Isaiah Thomas it was, and they got involved with the local historical council, and I think there was 150, 200 people at that. So a lot of times those are the easiest, because you're going to hit the broader spectrum of people to hit a historical event. Largest event by far I've been to as a Mason is when we relayed the cornerstone, and there was something like 1,500 Masons walking through the city of Boston, marching through the city of Boston. One of the coolest events I've ever been to, and guys came out. They didn't really have to sell that one that hard. It's just, we're going to march through Boston. Okay, I'm coming from the other side of the state. I don't care. I'm going to be there. I'm not going to miss it. One of the districts did an event where they made Joseph Warren. They didn't have an actual gravestone for him. It was, or at least nothing to really speak of. And they commissioned a bronze sculpture and raised the money for it. And they commissioned that sculpture in the cemetery. They put it on and the Grand Master went and unveiled it. That was a really cool event as well. I think, those tend to be, if you're looking for something right off the bat that you can do, just find something historical about your lodge, about your community, and play off of that. And guys will come out of the woodwork for it. And as far as community events, I mean, a lot of the events that I was involved in before, um, we did chip programs. When I was in charge of the child ID program in the area, we did a child ID program at the Westover Air Show. I think 150 children were ID'd. We did one we've done one every year for 10 years at the Basketball Hall of Fame. And it's usually 250, 300 kids ID'd there. It's one of the largest ones. The reason I bring those up the big reason is like there was this guy Barney that used to come out. I don't even know where the guy lived, but it was like nowhere close to us. And if there was a child ID event, the guy would like come across the state, be like, "I'm here to help." So if you find stuff that guys are into, they'll, to your point of like, how do you get guys involved? Give them something that they can give back, and that they feel that they can be a part of something bigger than themselves, and they'll just come. If you get the word out, let them know.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that's one of the reasons I asked that is just because I'm kind of bringing it up because it's one of my own biggest failures right now with these events is, I've been able to pull off, our evening of Masonic Light every year. But, I haven't generated that passion in the lodge, or at least I don't see it where, people want to be part of it. And, I'm fine admitting it because it's probably my fault, and the way that I managed it and stuff. But, a lot of it kind of falls on me and another guy to get everything done. And, maybe me saying, yeah, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. We get it done. Might be not the best way to handle that. Delegation, they say. But, when you're flying people in from out of state and stuff like that, you can't delegate a hope of, yeah, hopefully someone will pick them up from the airport. Someone needs to pick them up from the airport type of thing. But yeah, it's great to hear different opinions on that.
So I don't think we've even like scratched the surface on what's possible. Like when you think about events, and I try to follow as many as I can in different jurisdictions, and like New Jersey did like a 3rd degree on a battleship. Like how cool is that? Like it can't be that hard, and I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of things that are going to be coming out of the woodwork with these younger, more enthused Masons that I've been seeing, that are searching for more and willing to provide more by, this is what I want to do. Let's go do it. And that's, always been my motto. I typically don't do things I don't want to do. So, we come up with crazy ideas, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but at least you try. And we're fortunate enough that we have a great membership that, even the worst idea, we can turn it into, at least we're hanging out and having fun. But it's interesting to just think about the possibilities, like flying out the Oklahoma Native American degree team. Like how cool would that be? I've always wanted to see it. I just, can't get the lodge to swing that. Flying 12, 15 people out, put them in hotels. But it would be awesome.
Yeah.
I did a degree in Springfield before I joined, and like I've heard stories about it, but again, I never seen it myself. So
yeah, no, I know a couple of guys who live out in the Midwest who have told me how awesome it is. It's really, I mean, the things that I've heard lodges doing together have that have been wildly successful, have been so varied. It's pretty awesome. I mean, some of the strangest things I've heard is, a lodge had a brother who was a Native American and still practiced that his religion, his native religion, and invited 5 of the guys to do a vision quest. And like they did the whole thing, which sounds bad, you know, he took them out. It was a very controlled, very sacred trip where they, you know, went into a smoke hut, did peyote, and but it was, there's certain people who are like, oh, they did drugs. It wasn't like that at all. It was like, and they said it was just this unbelievable, like, spiritual thing that they did together, and that's as extreme as you can get. And then I hear, I've been to the Mount Owl's Head degree that for 100 and some odd years they go to the top of a mountain and do a degree every year. It's and there's no reason you nailed it on the head. There's no reason why this stuff can't happen anymore. You just kind of need to do it. And the interesting thing is, and I don't know how to do this correctly, but we have this relationship ourselves where, we're three guys from three different lodges and we do stuff together. And, sometimes if you're not going to get a whole lodge involved, I'd love to explore, all right, how do we do this without an official lodge? Do we need a lodge to do this, or do we just need a group of Masons who are like-minded? I mean, if you're going to open lodge or do a degree somewhere, obviously you need a host lodge for logistics reasons. But for other experiences that, like you're talking about, like getting like-minded Masons together is probably going to be more meaningful sometimes than getting your lodge together. In fact, I know a few lodges where that's how their lodges started. They just kept doing stuff together and realized that maybe we should turn this into it. I mean, the lodge that I went out to in Oklahoma and visited, they started as a study group that met underneath the floor in Guthrie, and they realized, like, why aren't we a lodge? And now, I mean, an extremely close lodge out there. It was pretty impressive to meet those guys. So I'm definitely in the mindset of if you can't find the interest in the lodge, that doesn't mean you have to stop. Just find the interest with your friends and brothers and just do it and have fun with it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had a blast going out to California, met a bunch of brothers that we would have never met. I mean, that was phenomenal. And, as Brian alluded to earlier, who knew we were bringing two candidates for junior grant or for Grand Warden out there at the same time. But, those guys had a blast with us, and we got to see some stuff we'd never see. Some stuff we probably shouldn't have met we see. But it was great. And you bring that back because they had a way of doing things that we would have never really thought about here, maybe because, we don't have the same resources that they have. But to me, it was great to go out there and see that. I mean, it was just, they're able to, South Pasadena Masonic Lodge is able to pull off these, like, I don't know, I'm trying to find the word for it, but I mean, the event was really classy. Wouldn't you say, Brian? Like, just there's a level of, like, I don't think I could put that together. Like, I wouldn't have the pieces to put that together, but from the fact of getting custom gels to project like their lodge logo and the event logo on the wall, and just the whole way they lit it and did different things. They had incense burning throughout the lodge during it. Like, there was a lot of attention to detail. I mean, they made a green room upstairs for the speakers, which I think Brian wants to steal now. That's
Yep.
That's like the best way. That's the best thing of seeing, like, traveling, is to see all these things and to see how you could do it differently. I mean, and I think they felt the same way coming here. And it just, you feed off each other, and it's only going to get better the more that we do that. When we go to Chicago next year for Chicago Masonicon, I'm sure we'll learn some stuff from the guys in Chicago. We learn some stuff from the guys in Virginia. It's just.
Well, I think a lot of it's culture, right? So
yeah.
Obviously the brothers in South Pasadena, their entire life and culture is completely different from what we have out here. and it's everything. It's their work. Like half of them work in the movie business. So what we see is amazing with like putting their logo on the wall, which probably like 4 minutes for one guy to bang out. I mean, maybe longer, but realistically, like they were built to do what they did, and we're built to do what we do, and that's what's great about visiting and traveling and seeing how that stuff goes. I can't wait to see what RJ does with his Chicago Art Deco themed, and there's no telling what he has up his sleeve. And Joe Martinez is down in Virginia. See what he's going to come up with next year. They're moving it to the Shrine because they had to turn away 30 people. Um, whatever other events come up. I know Nathan Tweedy was talking about doing their anniversary in Cooperstown, which has a ton of potential to be amazing. So hopefully all that goes smooth.
Yeah.
There's too many things to see to stay in your lodge. That's I think the thing. If you want to do an event, do an event. But if you want to learn about events, go to events.
Right.
Yeah, like even the Esotericon that they just did in California was totally even different than what South Pasadena did. They had like DJs there, and it seemed to be a little more music focused, and it was they had some pretty deep esoteric talks there. It was a different feel, and it was just down the street. That's what I love, the fact that all these conferences, it's not, no one's like really copying each other because everything's got its own local flavor. And I think that's what's huge here. Like, you didn't see that 10 years ago. It was one lodge starts a spaghetti or a spaghetti supper or a breakfast, and then there's 50 breakfasts in the 10-mile area. Everybody's trying to overdo like who's got the best eggs or whatever. But now it's just on a totally different level, and like you said, you got professional films, and I mean, you have like professionals doing some of this stuff. It's not at the level of like the amateur kind of throw something at the wall and see what sticks. I mean, there's some serious high quality stuff that would succeed whether it was Masonic or not. And I think the guys that are pulling it off, they're not just sometimes I think when you think, oh, well, we're Masons, so we're just amateurs, and I don't think that's really the case anymore. I think that you're seeing a lot of quality events across the board, and hopefully it just keeps on getting better and better.
I think one of the things that people need to remember too, with a few exceptions that I will not go into, the people who are running these organizations, like you guys, and I've met only a few who would not offer their like as much advice and support as possible. Like, hey, I don't know how to do this. Reach out to them and they'll help you. I mean, there's a couple of guys out there that I don't see that happening with, but 98% of anybody who's pulling these off wants to see it happen somewhere else. So, just reach out. Like, hey, how do you do this? How do you offer me some advice, and just talk about it. I mean, if you can't go to their events, obviously they're doing something right. Just reach out to them. We're all brothers. So one question I would ask you guys is, the people who have come up to me about events like this, they talk about speakers. So how do you guys go about picking your speakers or looking for people who you'd want to bring to your events?
So for me, it started with, essentially the like podcast circuit, and we have a ton of local people. So I started with that. And then recently, I think 2 years ago, I started thinking, okay, I like how this guy talks, but I want to give him this topic to talk about. And that's, you just kind of put them together like that. And, or you seek out somebody that specializes. Like we had Chris Douglas from Tombstone, Arizona come out last year. And it was literally, I reached out to Arizona. I said, hey, I need some kind of Wild West talk. I really wanted to, dig deep into that. And that's where I ended up with this guy. And like, he came out, he was tremendous, you know, a great person to meet. And that's one of the benefits I think you have, is you don't really get the, for lack of a better word, douchebags, because it's masonry.
Yeah.
You know, you start on the same level. So they come out, they're appreciative, you brought them out, you know, you really just don't run into that garbage person. So everybody you have is going to be good. That quality of speaking varies, but, you know, that's kind of how I just go about it. And now it's not as hard because I've been able to meet so many people, and, you know, we have a waiting list every year. So,
Yeah. What about you, Michael? Have you what's your experience with like finding the people to come in?
You know, lately I've been trying to, on a lodge level, I've been trying, the master this year asked me to put some speakers together. I've been trying to encourage guys to speak that aren't speaking out there. You know, like Ryan Wheaton, who you met, would, you know, we went out when you spoke in Leominster or Fitchburg. You know, he wanted to do a talk and on the 47 problem of Euclid, and he knocked it out of the park. And, you know, now he's got the bug and he's having a ball with it. And I think sometimes if you can encourage those guys that have that inkling, that maybe aren't professional speakers or aren't on the circuit, it could have so much more of an effect on a lodge to get those guys engaged and talking about it. Chris St. Cyr's father came out for me and talked about his favorite Masonic symbol. That's what I've been using as a starter lately. And he talked about the beehive and how he used it in business. And he actually had a beehive in his office when he was working. And if you came in and you were a Mason, you instantly knew it, and he had something to bond with you, or something to bond with you about. Sometimes if he was counseling an employee, he would use it in the counseling to say, you know, he would refer back to the lecture. And it was it's great to hear the esoteric talks, but sometimes it's like, just what does somebody really think themselves, you know, no matter what their position is. Like, I was kind of disappointed with some talks I heard lately where they were saying, you know, if you don't have source material, if you don't read the source material in the language it was written, then you don't have any business speaking about Masonry. And maybe I'm oversimplifying what they were trying to say. And I know there's definitely needs to be some responsibility and scholarship, but I don't think that the founders of Freemasonry designed this so that we could have a bunch of authorities out there telling everybody what to think. I think they designed it for the exact opposite reason, so that you could internalize it and talk about what it meant to you. So I love encouraging guys that aren't out there speaking, or, you know, putting, like Brian said, just tell a guy, you know, hey, I think I like your take on this. Why don't you talk about this? And to me, it's more entertaining to see those guys sometimes.
Yeah, I think that, you know, there's a need for both. You know, one of the concerns I have with, and first of all, I should take a step back. Yeah, the idea that if you're not doing the original research in, you know, ancient Greek or something like that, means that you have no say in this topic is clearly a definite sign that, yes, you understand ancient Greek, but you don't understand Freemasonry. You know, it comes down to that whole, it's something I'm very fortunate to have seen firsthand because of what I studied in college, which is art history. You know, there's a definite line between historical research on intent versus interpretation. And, you know, it's the hot topic since Dan Brown came out, you know, like him making claims that artworks have these symbols in it, which, you know, it's a great way of interpreting it, but there's no historical intent or evidence of that to back it up. But it doesn't mean that you're not generating thoughts and ideas about how to interpret things. And Freemasonry is interpretive as a whole. So, you know, with me as a speaker, you know, I've gone around the country a few times now doing this. You know, my introduction to doing speaking was just talking about what meant something to me. I got up and I talked about art, and and I was very fortunate to have a couple of big names in Masonry say, "Don't stop," and they kind of pointed me towards what I needed to do that. And with our Evening of Masonic Light, we do the same thing. You can, I would just say like, "Hey, I need someone to talk. Tell me, and it wasn't like open doors, like talk about anything you want. Tell me what you want to talk about, and I'll help you try to go the right direction." Because there's extremes, like the one extreme is original languages, no BS, no flair, pure data. This is the source of Masonry, which is extremely important because we need to understand that and be able to reference that if we're going to make a educated guess as to our intention, to the intentions of the craft. The other example is the complete opposite of that, which is no evidence, no, I'm turning this into what I want it to because it sells or or it's going to make me look good. And, that's something that it's one of my pet peeves in Masonry. I mean, I'm all for everybody's individual interpretations and what this means to them and how it affects them. God love you. That's what it does to you. That's great. But I've definitely been at a couple of events where someone will get up and claim authority and speak on authority to something that they shouldn't be speaking on. And the way and I'm not trying to sound judgmental, but there's ways that you can talk about things where you're not claiming authority. So, I did a presentation on Michelangelo. You guys saw it. And, I made it a very good point to say, like, this is my interpretation of this. I've read a ton of books on Michelangelo. I'm obsessed with art history, but I don't have a doctorate in art history. I don't, this is my passion, but it's not my profession. And there are people who will get up there who have no degree, no background, and then say, like, this is a fact, and it's clearly not the case. So when it comes to choosing speakers and stuff like that, the first of all, travel to events. If you see a good speaker, get into your lodge if he connects with you. And the same thing is the opposite. Unfortunately, some of the things that you learn about traveling are the speakers you don't want there. And I'm not going to mention names. Obviously, I'm not going to badmouth a brother, but you have those Masons out there that they think they're the celebrities and they need the brown M&Ms in their glass bowl and their premium hotel suite, and it's rough. I've met Masons who after like 2 successful speaking engagements thinks they can charge $1,000 a speaking engagement for a lodge, which is just it's
foolish.
Yeah. Listen, if you're, the thing is, like, if you're if you have some serious credentials and that's your profession, the lodge should know that up front. If I'm going to hire, the head of doctoral studies at Harvard University to come in and talk about symbolism, which is, they don't have that department, but if they had that, I'm going to pay that guy. You're going to have to pay it. That's his profession. But if it's a Mason coming and they're demanding exorbitant fees and stuff like that, that's usually a really good sign that those are the people you don't want there. And I know I'm overgeneralizing, and I'm sure there are exceptions to the facts that are out there, but I've personally found in my experience the people who are passionate about speaking are the ones who want to speak whenever they can, wherever they can, because they really truly believe in the message that they're trying to get out. But in summation, picking speakers is all about talking to people who are good at finding them, or a person who's spoken a lot around the country. Hey, who have you seen that Makes sense. Like, for example, you mentioned Pierce. If I was looking for a speaker and Pierce couldn't do it, I would ask Pierce, like, who should I listen to? And any person he says, I'm going to want to listen to, because, you know, his character and his reputation precede him. And, you know, same thing with the guys from like North Carolina. You know, I've asked Ben, you know, when we were looking for our evening of Masonic Light this year, and, you know, I reached out to Ben Wallace, and he said, hey, I'm thinking about finding a new speaker. He's like, Chuck Dunning, get Chuck Dunning up there. I didn't even think about it. You know, it was okay, we're bringing him up. And it was a phenomenal experience talking to him. So there's, you know, ask Oscar Allen who he wants, who we should hear, and you're going to get someone you need to hear. If it's not Oscar. So, it's interesting because one of those things that I've heard floating around a lot is having like a speakers bureau, like a national speakers bureau, where people can kind of choose names and hear who's out there. I've heard of some ones that are starting up, but, you know, there's not a lot of peer review in Masonry right now, which is either a good thing or a bad thing. If you're fortunate enough to know people like Oscar and Ben and some of those like heavy duty hitters like Robert Hurd, those guys, they're also the kind of friends and brothers who will tell you what you need to work on. You know, and it's unbelievably beneficial for that. It's also fun to just get called out once in a while when you know you love the guy. You know, I remember Sean Iyer really getting me once, and I was like, well, damn. That's not going in the next week. But that's how I would reach out.
I loved watching Chuck when at the Evening of Light. I commented to him later. I said, you know, your style is that, like, I want to be you. I want to be you as a speaker when I grow up. You know, like, it was phenomenal to watch him work. And, you know, like you say, there's different styles, and some styles I like and some I don't. I mean, there's some great speakers that I couldn't pull that style off, or I wouldn't if I tried. And then, you know, he's one of those that just, I mean, the guy's just, I hate to say he's a natural, but he just seems so comfortable up there, you know.
He's one of those guys who will do a speech and you don't know he did it.
Yeah.
You're like, did I just learn something? Like it seems like he doesn't do much, but he's like leading these amazing discussions. It's crazy.
Yeah, you get from A to B and you're like, where? I don't understand. I couldn't trace my steps back if I tried.
Yeah.
How's your talk going with him? You're going to be speaking at Masonicon with him on a joint topic.
Yeah, I need to talk to you about that. I didn't want to talk about that on the podcast, but yeah, I need to talk to you about that.
All right, we'll talk later.
Yeah. I might be out of the country.
Nope. You sure aren't.
I'll fill it in, but it will be really weird. Yeah, I need to talk to you about that. I can't pass this up.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
You're easy to replace. I thought Chuck was going to be gone, and I was really upset. But
oh yeah, you're gone. Yeah, it's cool. It'll still be great. Yeah, no. Yeah, I'll say it here. My wife's family is going to Sicily with my wife's grandfather, who's going to Italy for the last time, and there are like 27 of them going, and price is too good, and get to take my 7-year-old to the village where her great grandfather was born, and see the house where he was born in, and can't pass that up. So I'm going to try to get the lodge over there and see if I could piss off my wife thoroughly. Okay, everybody, I gotta go. But yeah, sorry, you can swear at me when we turn off this.
oh, I will.
Yeah, it did. I literally, it was just locked in like 3 days ago. We had to put the deposit down. I was like, so.
Oh,
You
that's
can,
all
you
right.
can go see that crazy esoteric flag they have over there.
Yeah,
You
I'm probably just gonna drink wine.
yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
What is it like? It's like 3 disembodied feet in Medusa's head.
Yeah, and
The
some
craziest
corn.
thing ever. And some wheat. I think
Yeah.
there's some wheat in there.
Yeah.
A sheath of wheat.
The
3 of them.
the tour guide was like, "Does anybody want to go to Corleone?" I was like, "Yeah." I want to fall off a chair in some backyard. Just yeah. Sorry.
Good times, yeah.
Yeah, great. Brian's not my friend anymore.
And dead to me.
Yeah. All right. How many lodge presentations is it going to take to make it up to you?
I don't know. I think you've seen them all that are good anyway. So it's
The last one you had is done.
Hey, you're the one has to say that, you know, you passed on the last Masonicon, you know.
That's true.
I'll phone it in. I'll just use a lot of hand signals while I'm over there. Mason. Mia Fratello.
That's all right. I'll pair him up with somebody. He'll do fine.
Yeah. Someone better than me.
Yep.
Well, hold on now. Are you bringing up Randy? You say you're
You want me to pair him with Randy?
No, because if Randy's coming up, Ben's probably coming up.
I was going to have Ben speak.
You put
In fact, I might pair Ben with Chuck.
Yeah, and shut down. Yeah, drop the mic after it's done, because.
That would be.
All right, maybe I'm not coming to Sicily.
Well, you can't come to Masonicon. You're not invited. So.
And no Ryan's Club. There's your Masonicon shirt for next year. It's just an X through my face.
Bye. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah,
It's Ryan laying next to a horse head in bed.
The Godfather. I'm gonna make that shirt just anyways. I don't care. Well,
So, any more event things? I mean, anything else we could think of? Well, how about that? How about this? What would be, between both of you, the one event you've heard of that you want to go to the most? How's that?
ooh,
That I haven't already been to?
Yeah.
Guthrie. I mean, I want to see
right,
it as
right. Guthrie is a town.
well, yeah, the Scottish Rite. I mean, that's, you know, allegedly it's the best Scottish Rite presentation in the world, and you know, guys rave about it, and I think that would really be the one event that I've heard of that I want to go to. That being said, outside of that, which I have no personal connection to, I guess we should probably plug Chicago Masonicon.
Okay. I do want to go to that. That's a good one. How about you, Ryan?
I don't know if I have an event that is like sticking out to me more than others. I'm huge on traveling, and there's bucket list lodges that I want to see just to experience it. So it's like the lodge experience. I want to go to Mother Lodge #0 in Scotland, and just I met at that Apollo festival. I met the Mason who did Terra Masonica, did 80 lodges around the world, and I was talking to him, and I said, what was your favorite place you ever went to? And this guy, if you've seen it, he goes to like one near the South Pole, one near the North Pole, Grand Lodge of Israel, and like all this unbelievable stuff. And, I asked him like, what was his favorite lodge that he went to? And he was saying that Mother Lodge in Scotland, was just like such an interesting, like cool experience that, if he could go to all of those lodges and then say that lodge definitively, I'm like, I need to experience it. And So I'd really want to go there. Yeah, I'm just all about traveling. It's just I want to experience. I really think that a good lodge, any meeting is an event.
Hmm.
There's some lodges that I feel like so fulfilled when I go to, like that. I just joined a lodge down in North Carolina because I get such an experience from the brotherhood down there that I just wanted to be a part of it, even if I'm remotely 800 miles away. You know, and when I hear that, like, oh, they want me to speak again down there, I'm not really excited about me speaking there. I'm more excited about just going. Um, so yeah, that's definitely like my events that I like. I mean, I love going to anything, but it's those personal, like, small settings that impact me more sometimes than these huge events. Like with Masonicon, I love going to Masonicon. It's probably one of my favorite things to do each year. And my favorite thing about it is not like speaking or selling art or anything. It's that social hour at the end of the night where I get to meet like some of the coolest people, and that's really what I look for in a lot of stuff. So
I think before I think if you're talking lodges, the lodge that I'd be most interested in going to would be the one that was on the forward operating base in Afghanistan, because you have these guys that don't even really have a lodge and they're using garbage bags for aprons just to like make it happen. And to me, that's just a level of commitment that most of us haven't had to experience. So that blows me away that even happened. So that would be one of the most interesting ones in my mind.
yeah,
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I think there's several of them over there. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Prince Hall in Oklahoma is the one that charters a lot of them.
And did New York open? New York did one of the other ones or something?
They might have. I mean, other lots of states do it. If you have a bunch of people, like if there was a reserve unit in Massachusetts, they could petition, and I can't imagine that they wouldn't get some form of temporary charter just to maintain masonry. Um, but yeah, the Overseas Lodge in Rhode Island, the military lodge, they were chartered right after World War One in Colbez, Germany, by Rhode Island. Which is crazy. And then they came back home, so they're out there. That'd be
So
cool
what would your
though.
favorite place be?
I don't know. We get sidetracked with from events to lodges to
Well, both.
all kinds of things. I don't know. I kind of feel like I just want to create some kind of event. Like you look at like the Midwest and you go out there to like those ghost towns and having like a random meeting out there would be great. I think it's not an actual event, I guess, because it doesn't exist, to my knowledge, anyway. But I don't think it would be bad. I would do. I like just things that I've never heard of, I guess. So any lodge that wants to go to the North Pole and have a degree, I'll go. I won't do ritual because that's not going to work still.
yeah. I think it's like that allure of having a lodge meeting in a place that's not supposed to is just like, I know we've been talking about, the islands in Boston Harbor or something like that, and getting out there on one night and doing something out there. That would be incredible. I mean, you hear about like the ones in the mines and the caves and stuff.
Yeah.
Castles and
something different. I don't care.
Yeah.
Just let's be different.
Yeah.
And
There's a lodge in Mass this year trying to do a barge degree out in the ocean.
No, someplace hospitable. I mean, come on, I need a bathroom. Not a floating pylon in the middle of the ocean.
The ocean's not a big enough bathroom for you.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Everybody else dumps their crap in it. Why couldn't you?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think we were famous for that in Boston.
I mean, I guess in places that we've never been, I guess there's always the Lodge on the Moon. We could go back to that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. But
Yep. Not a lot of education up there.
No, they just said that there was a meme on Facebook or whatever about like some aliens bringing back like the the stuff that Buzz Aldrin left up there, and
Oh,
going
yeah.
like, no, really, Buzz left it up here, and they had like aprons on.
I saw that yesterday or today or something like that. But I think there's a lot of great lodges. Like the one we went to, South Pasadena, was gorgeous. Like very, very mission-y feeling.
The little arts and crafts kind of thing.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I think if we just keep traveling, you just find so much.
Yeah.
I haven't done much in the South at all, so that's something I got.
Yeah, I'm gonna fix that.
Well, yeah, I get a tractor shed.
Yeah, I was thinking. I know the dates I'm speaking down there next year. Maybe we road trip it.
Good. Good.
Ben's watching. Ears just popped up.
We're working on getting down there.
Another interesting thing in South Pasadena, we met Johnny Royal, the director of the Illuminated movie.
Yeah.
And I really I was like, another Illuminati movie, like, come on. And then it was amazingly done. So it actually tells the true story, interviewing family members and everything. And it goes over the degrees, the grips, the words, everything. And it's very fascinating how they put it together.
This is the real Illuminati.
Yeah, not the
Beyonce.
No.
I was at this cookout and this guy was talking it up a storm. He goes like, well, there actually are 5 Illuminati and stuff like that. And I'm like, huh? Yeah. He goes like, I met a guy who wrote the book on it. He's like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah. No, he translated all their ritual. Oh, he's like, oh, okay. And I was trying not to be like, please shut up, but I definitely ended up being the please shut up.
It's definitely worth checking out. Yeah. I was super impressed with it.
I've seen the trailers for it. It looks incredible.
And it's not, again, I can change my mind, but I went in thinking like, come on, really? Are you joking? And it was impressed. I was impressed. Very well put together. And Johnny's actually a pretty humble guy. You would think Hollywood guy, he would not be nice or whatever, but very down to earth, joking around with everybody. So it was different area, different feel, same brotherhood.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We should probably congratulate him since we're talking about him on this podcast, and he got married yesterday. So,
yeah.
So we should probably send a congratulations to him and his wife.
Yes. And he rolled over 1 million views on Amazon Prime already. So that's pretty cool.
Is that where it is?
Yeah.
Oh, guess what I'm doing tonight?
For free.
Painting art.
Yeah, that's me too tonight. Haven't been in the studio for about a week, so I gotta get back in there.
It's all dry. Maybe your daughter can paint some more.
It looks like Blue Man Group had a B&E in my house. It was just like a print here and
yeah.
Well,
I guess we
sold a lot of those paintings.
Yeah.
Probably wrap this one up. We're rolling up on 88 minutes.
Yep. All right. That's a movie.
But it's been a while, so we'll get back in the swing of things, and obviously we'll have to skip April while you're vacationing to Italy or whatever you do. Stomping grapes.
As long as I fall out the side. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we'll hit it again next month.
Yeah.
And
I'll offer two presentations at your lodge as a condolence for that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Hey, we'll call you.
You gotta do it while stomping grapes.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, that's gonna be all from us. And on behalf of Mike and Ryan, we want to thank you for watching this. To our watcher that's there, George. It's good to see you.
Oh, someone's watching?
Yeah.
Hey!
Well, we got to start promoting some of these and not do these impromptu things, but yeah, more to discuss.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, you have a good night.
Yeah, all right.
Right.